Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed on 1/1/2020, but we started Together for Sharon.com in her memory and to advocate today for a cure for all those still battling Parkinson's and their families, because we all feel, and our guest today, I believe that no one's ever alone in this fight. So I really just wanted to welcome our one of the most incredible doctors, in my opinion, and my view, out there, really in the forefront of the fight for awareness and hope for a cure. A lot of your research, and I spoke with Dr. or Bradley before. He was incredible, and everyone said such amazing things. But I personally been a follower and really admire your research and your work. So I just want to again welcome you to the show.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
Thank you, doctor, and I really again appreciate your time and how busy you are. Maybe we could start by telling everyone listening, a little bit about your background and, what brought you to the world of Parkinson's, not just awareness, but just studying the important topic.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in the brain and fascinated by what makes us tick, I guess, cognitively. I have a lot of family members that are in medicine, and so medical school was kind of a natural extension from, what made sense to study. But then as I was going through and learning different courses, I think a lot of people hated neurology and neurobiology and all of that sort of circuitry, but I was very drawn to it. And I've also love sort of the psychiatry piece as well. I love to understand what makes a person, you know, their themselves and their identity, and makes us all sort of who we are and how we interact and connect with each other as well. So that's been exciting to me in the medical world. Outside of medicine, I've always had a strong background in other types of medical systems. So Ayurveda, I was really interested in yoga and meditation, somewhat growing up, and then got quite interested and got trained in those after I became a neurologist. And I've just really been interested in sort of the out of the box approaches of what really is health, what helps us to heal, gives us comfort. And, when we're dealing with something like Parkinson's, it's, in my opinion, not just pills and surgeries. It's sort of a whole other area that we're just sort of tapping into and learning about from our patients and their caregivers.
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned is so important. A lot of what you mentioned, really, the mental health side too. A lot of people don't give the time, even with Parkinson's, on mental health. So it's something that really, I think, needs to still be researched and addressed. And also just the Parkinson's community. You do so much, I think, with advocacy. You might not realize it, or, it's kind of comes from the work that you do. What kind of keeps you motivated to keep traveling and doing so many different areas? We'll get to it in a moment, but I love your work too with the World Parkinson's Congress. I hope someday we get to meet and I can thank you in person for all that you do. But, things like that, what keeps you kind of, motivated to keep fighting?
I mean, our patients, I think people living with Parkinson's and the people that love them are very motivating. I think we, learn a lot from them. I've, been a Parkinson doc for over 20 years, and I can, truly feel like many of my patients have become like family. I care about them deeply, and, really want to sort of help them to live better lives. And I think I'm really inspired just by the advocacy community. Um, Many younger people living with Parkinson's, some women with very strong voices, just really sort of asking for something different, working together to really sort of change the paradigm. And so, really, it's been about lifting up voices and helping to look through different lenses at a disease process that I think has historically been thought of in one dimension, but really has, a lot of things that contribute to it. And I think when we can, work together to sort of think about ways that we can help people that are living with this disease, not just by replacing one chemical, but really thinking about what they can do for themselves, helping them to feel empowered, educating, the general public about this disease and who gets it. I think we can really sort of move the needle where it needs to go. Another source of inspiration is really those who haven't been served. So I think, people that are minoritized in North America and other parts of the West, but also certainly the African story of people that don't even have access to the most basic medicine that we have that is freely and cheaply available throughout, our countries here. We can't even prescribe and get in those countries. And so I can't even imagine the live life of somebody who doesn't have access to this. And then when you think about the people who are caring for them and the physicians that are also trying to make a difference with very little tools in their tool belt, we really have to get creative about how we can, work together to help those people too.
I agree, and that's why I was kind of saddened and shocked, but also motivated when I learned about the World Parkinson Congress only a few years ago. I thought there were about a little more than 1 million people in the US, but was really kind of heartbroken when I found out over 10 million around the world. And that's when I kind of went on another journey to share their stories and yours, because I think there's people out there like myself. When I was a caregiver, my mother was going through Parkinson, that felt alone. And by sharing everyone's others' journeys really kind of gives a little bright hope that you're never alone. So I appreciate that. Is there any areas of research that you are really focusing in the future coming up?
Yeah, I mean, so I think one passion of mine has been around the concept that loneliness is really bad for us, all of us. But certainly if you're living with a neurodegenerative disease like Parkinson's, it is something that can really make a big difference to have people that care about you and that you can talk to, that support you. I think we've really undervalued that in medicine. So I think that that is something that I hope to refine that story. How can we screen? How can we make this practical? What kinds of things can we do to help connect lonely people throughout the world to each other and to resources? So the social connection piece is something that's really, I think, going to be important. We have a wellness task force at the Movement Disorder Society that we are hopefully going to turn quite soon into a study group to help look at things like wellness strategies and really sort of get collaboration throughout the world, really, in these spaces. So are there lifestyle choices that we can help to teach people living with Parkinson's, like diet choices, exercise choices, sleep, issues? Can we confront those and help them to sleep better? Are we able to socially connect people and also lead into some of these mind-body spaces that have been important to me? Things like yoga and Tai Chi, meditation, breath work, but even, having a better sense of how to teach people some of these sort of benefits of the mind-body space and things that they may already be doing, perhaps getting out in nature, perhaps, prayer, different things that I think we haven't really tapped into the benefits of. And some people may already be doing some of these things, and we have to just help them to realize that these things can make a difference. So I think one of the things that we're hoping to do is really get a sense of how to study this better and to then help healthcare systems and policymakers actually help us to, connect patients to these in a more intentional way and more proactive way.
I'm really interested in the topic of loneliness, obviously specifically Parkinson, but in so many other ways. I myself have a PhD and I did more, or I still do, aiding victims who lost their loved ones due to crime. I'm mined in criminal justice. So I worked with a group, African American mothers in West Palm Beach, Florida, who lost their loved one due to murder. And a lot of my work has been where sadly the family members are often forgotten by the criminal justice system. So that's where my life work is. But I also found or feel a lot of the Parkinson's community often is forgotten by the system. And by you shedding light to things like topics like loneliness, I think it really kind of brings a shining moment and so important. So I'm excited for that research and appreciate that. And your colleagues that you work with, we love them also. But I just wanted to share now a few little things, not little, but this is your X page, Twitter formerly, and everyone, if you can please support the doctor. And she's just incredible. Works with the PMD Alliance, with the World Parkinson's Congress. We don't have the time to list them all, but we're grateful. And I'm definitely following you all the way to the top of this important research. Also, the World Parkinson Congress, I know you touched on it. Hopefully in 2025, if I'm able to, I'd love to, meet you there and hear you. Do you have any other areas you might want to touch on the World Parkinson's Coalition or Congress?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a great way to connect with each other. And I love, we had a lot of programming for women around some of the unmet needs for women at the last Congress that were largely just in smaller sort of circles. So we had a few roundtables and stuff, but those were only able to be attended by a select few women. But it was always sort of magical to hear women help support each other. And sometimes, one of the issues when it comes to women is that they don't necessarily fight for themselves. Like if they have an issue for a woman, they may put themselves last and take care of everybody in their family, from their mother to their brother to their husband to their son to their mother-in-law, and not take care of themselves. And I think that what happens when we get women together who are like that, they tend to stick up for each other. And so that's really kind of where the magic happens, is when you're able to see this transformation of people saying, you know what, I'm not alone in this. I do matter. This woman matters. And so I should too. And so that's been kind of exciting to me. Hopefully we'll have more women related programming, programming around underrepresented, minoritized populations as well. I think, we sort of have some folks that have resources and sometimes come from a place of privilege, that sort of are the ones that are studied the most and then catered to the most. But I think that leaves a lot of folks that are not getting proper research representation, and then not good sort of ways to give bespoke care to, for example, women with lower body mass index, that when they weigh less, if we give them the same dose of levodopa that we would, a man who might be twice their size, sometimes they generate dyskinesias in a different way, or they have other issues with metabolism of these medicines. So I think we have to really think about who's sitting in front of us and cater these sorts of things to the person that's in front of us. I love that meeting. It's like one of my favorite meetings. And I think, hopefully we can have more of this type of programming. And I think leading up to the meeting too, we'll hopefully have some webinars that will be able to showcase some of this stuff. And I urge anyone living with Parkinson's out there and their caregivers to come and be there in person if you can, because that's sort of, where you see people that look just like you and you feel sort of not as alone. And I know many of the people that I look up to, and some of our actual collaborators who are themselves people living with Parkinson's, met at the meeting with each other and have then formed some of these groups like the PD Avengers, or the women's group related to Parkinson's, and some other folks. So I think definitely come out and learn, and it's a nice opportunity to meet clinicians and scientists and give your voice to what matters to you. Sometimes we're too busy focusing on a tremor that actually may not matter to you, but really something like anxiety, or your sort of sense of your own psychosocial worth and shame and blame because you got Parkinson's, a stigma related to Parkinson's. These are things that we've spent very little time as a group of doctors focusing on, but we're realizing that this can really matter a lot to the people who are living with this disease.
Yeah, that's why I'm so honored to have you on today, because we actually didn't kind of plan it, but we've had, I'd say, like 10 actually last episodes dedicated to females with Parkinson's, and bringing up issues that I obviously as a man might not understand, but voicing their concerns, their struggles, but also what works and didn't work. Just incredible, because like you said, I think we need a lot more awareness really for that too. So thank you. Also, I did a lot of research, but saw that you've done so many beautiful, lectures and events and speeches. So if everybody goes online and searches the great doctors' information, you'll see some amazing research that I could probably sit and watch for 12 hours, and you won't want to sit with me. So, but it is out there. So really want to thank you for that. I just want to shift now to a little bit more about yourself. You are not required to respond if you don't want to, but they're fun. So, can you list 3 words that describe who you are?
I'm passionate. I love, I'm a people person,
Mhm.
and I'm curious.
Thank you. Is there one moment or one most memorable moment that stands out through most of your work so far with awareness that you could share?
In Parkinson's.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, doesn't have to be, but
Um, I think when we so we wrote a paper on women living with Parkinson's, and it went kind of viral in some ways. We put some images on this paper that we looked at kind of the image of rebranding Parkinson's a little bit with imaging that did not look like, the older Caucasian male in the drawings that we all went to medical school and learned about this disease from. It was really some images of vibrant, women that were, of different textured hair and skin color. So we put together that image as well as another image that was around um the hormonal cycle of women, and like looking at, menstruating women and the perimenopausal timeframes, and really represented sort of, these sort of life moments in a woman's sort of hormonal journey. And I think those images really kind of resonated with a lot of people. People started downloading the paper, and I saw our images popping up kind of everywhere, and women saying, for the first time, I really see myself represented in a paper and in an image. And so I think, to have that sort of feeling of being seen and heard was exciting to me. Similarly, I think, for me, I write a lot of papers looking at things from different lenses. So you mentioned Brad McDaniels, Greg Pontone. These are a couple of colleagues in the psychology and psychiatry world. And we've been writing papers just with different lenses, written papers with dietitians, written papers with patient voices, that are really pretty important. Another, sort of moment that was pretty exciting that just happened was to have Professor Bosblom highlight, in the first half an hour of the first, plenary of our movement disorders meeting in 2024, two of my papers, and say that these are required reading by, everyone. One included the one on giving the diagnosis of Parkinson's with hope and compassion. And so I think the shift is happening, and I'm excited to sort of see, these papers and the images and the voices that they really represent being seen in mainstream, educational spheres that any one of my colleagues throughout the world should be paying attention to. It's not just a niche conversation outside of the educational spheres of the masses of clinicians that are, whose job it is to take care of people living with this disease. So I'm excited to sort of see what the future holds, and hopefully we'll continue to, work together to create sort of relevant educational offerings that can hopefully change how we look at this disease from day one of diagnosis. So, stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, writing's not easy, as everyone might likely knows, but to also have the approval of your peers is something beautiful, specifically for journal articles, submissions and things, but appreciate that. And even just the one topic you mentioned, how to provide a diagnosis of Parkinson's, probably could take a whole show. Something actually I'm really interested in, because everyone's journey is so different. What happened with my mother wasn't a good experience, but doesn't mean it will happen to the next person. But by talking about it, researching and sharing it, you really can bring some important light, maybe for those who aren't the best at breaking something like that news, but can also improve from it. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a complex area. I think, in our ever challenged workplace sort of structures, we really don't have the time to spend
Mm.
with patients, and so much of our time is taken away working on billing documents and satisfying other sort of metrics that really take away from patient care. And so my hope is to really, hopefully we can push back on that and realize, at least for that moment in time when we're giving such a weighty diagnosis to somebody, we're really changing their life from that moment on. And if we don't do it well, it can actually impact a lot of the trajectory, in my opinion. And people have been pretty honest about that, when they've talked to me about how what they remember, that they remember in crystal clarity kind of what the paint smelled like, or the air quality, or the clouds in the sky the day they walked out of that room, and just sort of the feeling that they had, and how it could have been done perhaps differently. So hopefully we can, again, another area where not trying to blame anyone, because it's already, a huge task to sort of get through work days. People are in the workforce of clinicians are ever taxed and ever burnt out without a lot of, support. But I think if we can, at least talk about how important this is, we can maybe get some more resources. And I think, the open-mindedness also and the curiosity of how people who aren't necessarily physicians, but, maybe physical therapists or psychologists or, yoga teachers or whoever may touch our patients, what are the things to be learned there? What can they take off of our sort of list of things to do that they can reinforce in their sort of times when they're able to see our patients on a much more regular basis longitudinally. Are we able to sort of hand off some of this messaging or cheerleading or support to some of these allied health professionals, work with the multidisciplinary team, perhaps work with, patient organizations and support groups to really kind of create a package that really takes a person from day one of diagnosis throughout their disease trajectory, along with their loved ones, to really give them the support and educational tools they need.
It's important, especially you mentioned caregivers. I was a caregiver. Maybe you could give in a moment, there's two parts of this question, but first is who helps you during times of struggle? Obviously, it's not the easiest job at times telling someone they've been diagnosed. So I like to set a moment to thank your family, your friends, your support, kind of bring them out, not physical, physically, but at least thank them for all the support. I was curious who helps you during those tough times, and also, as you know, I was a caregiver. What tips can you give those listening who might be caregivers?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is, even though it's two sort of separate questions, I think it's actually kind of, they connect. So a lot of what I've been talking about again is this loneliness and social support piece. So I think for all of us, I consider us as clinicians sort of an extension of the caregiver team, right? So there are caregivers that are at home day to day working alongside the patient and caring for them, but then I am part of that caregiving team that sees the patient, episodically and works together. So I think we as the caregivers are at very high risk of burnout and need to really take that sort of sense of the oxygen mask analogy of taking care of themselves, putting that oxygen mask on themselves so that they can do the level best for their loved one. If something happens to the caregiver, then we're really, up a creek without a paddle, right? Like as doctors, like who are we going to help take care of our patient? So even though we can't bill for separately to support the caregiver, you are, hugely a part of the success of the person living with Parkinson's and their wellness. So I think, making sure the caregiver takes time for themselves. It's not about quantity time, it's really about quality time sometimes. So if they can get respite, get help, ask for help, take the help, don't feel guilty about leaving the home to get replenished or needing some downtime. I think, again, these friends, and when I talk about loneliness, there's a couple of things that we all need. So one is an intimate sphere of loneliness that's helped by the person that we love at home. The second is a friend circle where you have a group of friends that can feed your soul, listen to your, innermost thoughts and sometimes your gripes and sort of, just be a sounding board. And we all need that. And many people don't have that. And then we also need a societal connection. Perhaps it might be for a Parkinson's patient to a Parkinson's support group. But for the caregiver, it's important to find something in society, in your community, that also gives you, shared meaning. And so I think if you love, I don't know, bird watching or, a certain religious group that gives you that sort of comfort or whatever it is, trying to find something to get some sort of connection to other folks in your community as well. So you're not relying entirely on that one person that you're caring for 24/7 to be the sort of arbiter of all of your, loneliness protection or social connection. So I highly recommend that. And I also recommend that for clinicians as well. So for me, I have a set of girlfriends. We, have a glass of wine or a meal. We have a coffee once a week and we, really talk about things. And it's really lovely. It's a group of friends that I know I could count on. And I can get out of my house and talk to somebody about, things that really stress me out. And we can share, the human experience of all of the things like feeling lonely, feeling, stressed, feeling scared sometimes or whatever we're dealing with. So I think, it's important to just have people in your life that can give you that support.
Thank you. And we send our love and support to them and to you, of course, and all that you do. And just a few more final questions, but one is a new one we added, but who is your hero and inspiration?
Oh boy. Wow. That's,
Let to get the hardest ones at the end.
well, my mom's pretty cool. And my grandma too. I mean, these are two strong women that really, lived through adversity. And I would say, I guess my grandma, she lost her husband when her kids were very little. She didn't really speak any other languages. She learned a number of languages on her own. Really found a way to keep her family together and educate, her daughters and have them sort of get married at a time when you really needed resources to allow your many daughters to get married. She somehow found a way to marry them to, into good families and support all of her grandchildren and cheerlead for all of us, and remembered all of our birthdays and the star we were born under and many different quirky things about her many, many grandchildren, and just was a beautiful, energetic, sweet force that I still remember. And I wear her bracelets with me. And my sisters have some of them as well. And we, always sort of lean into that energy for, our own sort of strength.
And we'll dedicate it today in her memory too, so she'll never be forgotten. And if you were asked to write a script to a movie about your life story, since you like writing, what would you call it?
Oh boy. Huh, that's a really good one. Oh boy, that's a hard one.
I don't want to test you. I have enough
I
test
would
dummies.
say it's all love. It's all love. I mean,
Um,
all love because that's ultimately what it's about, It's all love, like, what we give and get from our patients, what we give and get to our children, our parents. It's just what makes the world go round is love. So
Thank you. And final question is, if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
I think, you know, um, I think that I would say you're not alone and that you just need to find someone who sees you and sees, that you can see yourself in them to help support you. I mean, I think we are nothing without support and connection. And, if you've become isolated and feel alone, that's not a good place to be in many, many levels. It actually puts you at a higher risk for so many things. So just making that first step to, picking up the phone to call a old friend or somebody that might be on your Christmas card list or, somebody who may need you actually more than you even need them. I was talking to um, someone yesterday about how they had a series of friends and they did try to connect with them, but nobody has the time and everyone's busy. And I literally said, you may be good, but maybe somebody else out there needs something from you, and you're actually the person to give it to them. So when I said that, there was sort of this light bulb. It was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, everyone needs something. I'm not always the person who's needs the help. We can actually give a lot, even when our, physically we may not be able to leave the house or we may not feel up to, being able to climb a mountain or do some extra, crazy workout today. I think something as simple as being able to pick up the phone and check in on somebody that you love that may need you is hugely actually I think impactful for both you and the other person. So that's what I would say.
Well, I really appreciate your time and friendship and all you do for the Parkinson's community and the world and the love that you spread too, like that one. But I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone also for listening. I have a little message for all of you. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with the great doctor, will advocate for you, and I feel together our voices are so much stronger. Now we say I'm just getting started because I remember, I think it was a year or more ago, and I actually, let me have one moment back. Just want to also thank you. I went over it, but thank you for interviewing prior. You'll recognize this lovely lady here. And if everyone goes to togetherforsharon.com, click interview, you can see a lot more in depth with the doctor and a lot more that we didn't unfortunately get to cover. But I did want to, again, thank you for your time. I'll be watching along the ride and just so excited for so much more research, but things that really bringing some important light to the topics that we already are discussing, but is not enough. And you're really changing the world for the better. So really want to thank you, and thank you to everyone for listening. Please share this. I always say this is not about just a quick conversation or an hour. Really has to continue until we find a cure. And I'm proud to say that the hope is very good, knowing that we have some incredible people out there like Dr. Researching, advocating, and fighting for everyone. So thank you again for your time. It means the world to me.
Thank you so much. It was a beautiful chat, and thank you for your advocacy, George. And I'm sure your mom is proud of you up wherever she is looking down. And yes, I think we all have to work together. That is absolutely the important, the only way forward.
I appreciate it again, and hopefully we have many more to come. So thank you everyone for listening. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon, son George. Please stay tuned. Please share this. Again, I won't stop fighting till we find a cure. Thank you, everyone.